lot of my videos have to do with or stem from my constant changes and my tweaking of my system and my setup. And this video is no exception. I have some new ideas I want to share, but I want to emphasize that all these changes, I mean, I don't expect that any of you make these changes, but I think, it's a mark of sanity not to make these changes all the time. But I think, because sometimes I feel like, oh, I should, erase the old videos because they're not current anymore or relevant. But they sort of are, because someone who watches a video and gets a good idea from it that works for their system, I shouldn't erase that, even though I move on from that and feel like, oh no, it didn't fit in, didn't work for me. So I guess this channel is becoming a repository of ideas, because my brain functions like a popcorn machine. It just, there are ideas popping out like popcorn all the time. And hopefully some of it sticks, someone gets something out of it. And I should stop feeling silly for not sticking with my own ideas for more than maybe a week, because that's kind of not the point. The point is to share all these cool ideas I have, regardless of whether I stick with them. So, full disclosure, this video will be a lot about, I guess, creative projects. I'm going to talk about world building and how I'm incorporating that in my project section, the back book, but it doesn't have to be, it's not if you don't world build, you can still watch the video, because the point is how I'm using used up project pages in the back book. So I was going to transfer all my someday maybe lists into the back book. I spoke about that in a couple of videos, that I wanted to retire this insert, but I've changed my mind. I started doing this. I started writing all my someday maybe stuff in this book, and then I realized, yeah, I don't want it. It's like Jon Snow. I don't want it. So I halted that project, and I am keeping my insert. The point of that was that I felt the book is too thick, but I'll just have to live with that and perhaps remove some. As you can see, perhaps I've removed 2 signatures from the front book, from the journaling section, because the gator mouth is just growing and growing. Because I put in stuff like this and this, like even doilies and stuff now. So, I have only myself to blame. But, I want it this way, even though it creates problems. So someday maybe insert stays. I've also put in some random pages from my previous planner setup, where I had a specific signature for my world building. And I've sort of, my world building has been on the shelf for a while. I haven't worked on my world, because I've been busy drawing the whole autumn. But now I'm sort of inching back into it, and I come back to the age-old problem of, where do I keep all my ideas? Because some of my ideas are in old planners, like just interspersed in everything else. Like there's planning and weeklies, and then there's a spread about my world, and it's just very random. I like it, sort of, and I don't like it. I would like to have everything in one place. I have a series Bible, a document on my computer, where I keep all the stuff about characters and countries and culture and all these things, belief systems. But I don't always want to work on a computer. I'm much more tactile. I want to do things with pen and paper, obviously. This whole thing is a monstrosity born of that. but having one signature like this, I mean, then you change books and what do you do with the signature? Where does it go? And I have a binder where I put some of these things, but it just, it doesn't, I don't like it. I want a tome. I want a tome like an old ancient book filled with my notes for my fantasy world. And that's what I'm going to do. I don't know why I haven't thought of this earlier. And right now it feels like the answer to everything. But you know, in a week I will have new ideas. So let's not shout hooray just yet. But the back book where I have my projects, my current projects, and now also journaling about my current projects, because I think I talked about that in my previous video, that I'm trying to incorporate project journaling into my morning routine. So this morning I did some journaling about this blue project, but the thing is, it's a transitory section. I mean, the daily planning in the front book is very transitory. It changed. I mean, I go through this in a month and then it's history. The back book with its projects is more like, it's a book that covers 6 months approximately, because my work kind of is divided into half-year increments, as it were. So let's look at, well, this page, for example. Or no, this one is good. This is a project I'm going to complete in December. So I have started preparing, that's why I've crossed things out. So this is a project spread. I don't have a journaling page for it, but here, up here in the corner, I journaled this morning about this project and how it's stressing me out a little tiny bit. But during December, all of these things will get crossed out because I will have done them. I will break these sub-projects down into next actions that I'll put on my next action spreads in red, and cross off. And then after Christmas, it will sort of be done. There will be one thing left to do after Christmas pertaining to this project. But then, you know, this spread will be history. And when it is, I will paint over it like I've done with this other project here. You can still see the writing and the crossed out stuff through the paint, but that's just because I haven't put on another layer. I think I'm going to put like sponge black onto it and maybe some gold, make it really vibrant. So when a spread is finished, I paint it, I embellish it. Like here I've started, I mean, it's just a washi tape, but the goal is to paint and embellish and then use it for world building, and not the initial jotting things down that I do very quickly, maybe in the car when it's moving, or when I don't have a desk and can write, you know, fairly beautifully. I have a specific spread for that. I have a writing project spread here. So home tab and writing tab. So I put the ideas for my world building here first, but it's all jumbled because I just jot down whatever comes to mind, and it can have to do with characters, it can have to do with languages, or like power sources in my world, whatever. But when I world build on these pages, these prepped pages, every spread is going to have its own like theme. I'm not going to make sections beforehand. I'm actually going to use the bullet journal method and have an index. Plan with Nay has an index. Who would have thunk it? But the thing is, every spread, like for example this one, I've started writing names for my characters, like possible names, name ideas, with a very faint pen, so I think I'll have to trace it with a stronger color. But anyway, this spread is for names and nothing else. This spread might be for this convent that exists in my world that I want to write about, because they deal in drugs and plant-based drugs, so green feels like the right color for them. So maybe this will be a spread where I write about that convent. So when I make my index, which I haven't done yet, I will put it in the back somewhere, and put like character names, page blah blah blah, convent information, page blah blah blah. So exactly like a bullet journal. It's just that everything in this book is going to be eventually about my world, my fantasy world. So I don't use the index for my planning or for my journaling or anything like that, my projects. I use tabs for that. But I don't want to use tabs for my world building sections because, well, for one, there would be too many tabs and too many colors and patterns to keep track of. But also because I think I want to use this book for flipping through and being inspired. So I don't necessarily need to find a page quickly and find information. I mean, I do want to have the index so that I can navigate, somehow through these pages. But the main point is to gather all these cool ideas that will then inspire me if I start writing this thing one day. And of course, I will run out of pages for that as well. First, I will use up the pages because my projects get done and become irrelevant, and then I paint over them and I use them for world building, and I will fill the book up with world building. So when it's all finished, I will switch out the back book for a fresh one and do the same thing over again. And when that book is filled with goodies, I will switch it out again, but I will glue those two together. So I will end up with, do I have any? Let's say that this is the same kind of notebook. It's just a thin, flimsy one, but say that this was a Leuchtturm. I will glue them together, and a third one as well when that is finished, so that I get a 750-page tome filled with world building stuff. And I can't keep the glee out of my voice, because that's what I've wanted all this time. It's just that if I start a book and think that I will gather all my world building here, a separate book that isn't part of my setup, I won't use it, because I don't know, it just doesn't work that way. But this book, I handle it all the time. I'm prompted to paint over pages that are used up, because it bugs me when they're ugly and just things are crossed out, and so it feels better when it's painted over, and then I can use it as a craft project and embellish it, and then transfer all my ideas from the writing tab, where I first jot down my ideas, to these more permanent pages. So it will become a part of the system instead of a separate book where, it's so easy to forget separate books, at least I find, and also to become afraid of mucking it up. But this one is already mucked up because it's filled with this ugly planning. So it will feel like less of a chore and less daunting to do my world building in here. And also I'll be able to flip through these pages when they're done in the mornings, when I sit with my planner / journal and just do my morning routine, and I can get inspired and just remind myself of all these ideas that I have, and everything is gathered in one place. I know that here are my names, here is information on the convent, and maybe there will be another spread about the convent over here. Yeah, yes, this is a good idea, I think. And as I said, this doesn't have to be about world building. Maybe you would like to just make an art journal out of it. So when you've painted over your pages, if you ever do, you can, well, you can, I don't know, do mixed media projects, or use it as a glue book, or a commonplace book and glue like newspaper clippings in, or whatever. But if it's part of your system, it gets done. Again, I find. So yeah, it's a chance to be creative. And in the past, I've used my weeklies for a similar purpose. So I've painted over my weeklies and glued pictures and drawn images and stuff. But since I change front books every month, it becomes like a chore to fill up the pages before I switch books. But this book, the back book, is more long term. So I have like 6 months or something to actually do the painting and embellishing. So it's quite a different beast. It's not as demanding. I have more time. I can have spurts of creativity when I do several spreads, and then I can go without for several weeks. It doesn't matter. Whereas, with the weeklies, I felt like I had to paint every week. Every Sunday I had to paint over and do something pretty, and it just, no, I don't want it. So, just to finish off this video, I put the map of my world on the inside of the front cover as a kind of reminder, inspiration, and just introduction to the whole thing. And I'm feeling so enthusiastic about this, like I always do with all my new ideas, even the ones I scrap after a day. So make of that what you will.